We are joined by Bill Rabinowitz of the Dispatch. Bill, how you doing? There's nothing like an Ohio State-Minnesota week, is there?
No, it's something special in the air. Actually, I think it's Minnesota weather.
Yeah, it is. It is. Fall has arrived, so that's a good thing, I suppose. It'll be more like mid-50s weather, more like we're supposed to have instead of the steamy 80-plus degree weather that we had last week. I was interested earlier this week. A couple things struck me with the interview sessions, and our Lori Schmidt was there, and we played some of the sound. Isn't it interesting to me, or maybe you don't find it as interesting as I do, how things have changed in the sports world over the last 15, 20 years, where these kids playing all over the country are friends and know each other and communicate with each other. The world's gotten smaller in that way with social media. I bring this up because of Dwayne Haskins revealing his relationship with Tua Tagovailoa, and that he and Tua text each other all the time and text Bible verses before games. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I actually think it's a really cool thing, but it's just, I don't know, Bill, in my time covering sports, it's just so different than it used to be where, you know, I don't know whether it's the camps that kids are involved in or it's communications, but I actually find it kind of cool that the two top guys for the Heisman Trophy are friends and are, in a way, Bill, kind of rooting for each other.
Right, and they grew up, thousands of miles away from each other. I mean, it couldn't be farther apart almost. But that's, it's the social media world where when we were growing up, you had a phone, and It was a landline, and usually you had to share with your siblings and parents, and you didn't have that access. And now kids can communicate with each other through all kinds of means that you and I aren't even aware of, I'm sure. And as you said, these guys go to these elite camps, so they know each other. They've known each other probably since they were high school freshmen or roughly that age, and so they've been in the same circles for years already. Yeah, it is a different world now.
Dwayne Haskins has obviously impressed all of us with his talent on the field, his throwing talent. I want to ask you, Bill, from a demeanor standpoint, this is not like although he has gotten excited on the field, we've seen that a few times, but he's not a in-your-face, rah-rah kind of guy. He's kind of a soft-spoken type of leader. I've been impressed with how he handles himself. What's your impression, Ben, of Dwayne Haskins in terms of his, I don't know, cool, calm, and collected nature on the field? What have you seen from him that's impressed you?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that he is pretty placid. I mean, he's not a guy who gets too high or too low, and at that position, that's important. People wondered before the season, is he going to have that leadership, intangible kind of, fieriness that J.T. Barrett had, that he could rally the guys and get emotional and all that stuff. And I think he does it in his way. It would be unnatural if he were a yeller and screamer. And his teammates know that. Teammates respond to what comes naturally. And if he were somebody, he tried to be somebody he's not, it probably wouldn't come off very well. And so his leadership is different. But I think that he has embraced that. I think, first of all, being behind J.T. Barrett for a couple of years helped him because he saw the way that J.T. Barrett prepared. He saw the way that he led, and that can only help you. So I think that they're very different in personality. But off the field, J.T. was a very mild-mannered guy. I mean, he was not – he did those interviews, and you could barely hear him sometimes.
Yep.
So he was not a brash guy. It was just when he got on the field, he was a different kind of personality. I think that's pretty common for quarterbacks, really all players. You have to be that way to play football. But I think that his basic personality of being fairly flat line is overall a benefit, not a detriment.
One of the things that he is not, that J.T. Barrett was on the football field, is a running style of quarterback. And we've seen, and how many times did we see over the last few years, third and fourth and short, J.T. Barrett know where the sticks were and able to pick up a first down. And that's, for all the unbelievable things that this Ohio State offense is doing, and you wouldn't trade it for anything, that has become like a number one issue in terms of me taking questions from listeners. What are they going to do on short yardage? I'm wondering, do you think that this possibility, because Urban's been asked about it, and yes, we're thinking about all these things, Do you think we'll see some wrinkles? Do you think we might see a Tate Martell package emerge this weekend in short yardage situations? Where do you think this coaching staff is going to go on those short yardage situations?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of wrote about that, more generally the run game in my advanced It'll Run and Buckeye Extra in our game day tab. It's Ohio State's averaging 4.7 yards a run this year, only 3.4 the last 3 weeks, which is pretty low for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
The disparity in passing yards per attempt and running yards per attempt is greater than it's ever been under Meyer. Obviously, some of that is because Dwayne Haskins is a throwing quarterback, not a running quarterback. And so the empty backfield 3rd and 5, as you said, J.T. Barrett's finding a seam and a lane to get 6 yards. That option's not there, and they haven't so far really replaced that. But you look at J.K. Dobbins, his longest run this year is 21 yards, and that's, how can that be? I mean, he's running very well. It's not like he's turned into a bad runner. He's still very good. I mean, you watch some of these 3 or 4 yard carries he has. That's a hell of a 3 or 4 yard carry. But they just haven't broken many. I think Weber had one early, 1 or 2 early, but that's an interesting thing, and that's something they got to get fixed because as the weather turns, and it's only going to get worse, you can't throw it all the time. When you go to East Lansing in mid-November,
yep,
it's going to be tricky to throw the ball, and so it would behoove them to figure out how to run consistently because down the road they're going to need to.
Yeah, we'll see. And this would be a really good week to experiment with something if you're going to try. That's why I almost feel like the Martell thing or some kind of a wrinkle. I don't know what it might be. We might see this week and next week, although I don't think next week is necessarily a shoo-in going to Purdue at night. But these are the times before that November schedule, Bill, where you probably want to try to establish something or figure something out.
Yeah, no question. As you look at the schedule, you go, okay, I agree with you. Purdue next week could be a very interesting game. Ohio State's better than Purdue on a neutral field. I don't think they'd have too much trouble, but Purdue can throw it, and that's been a weakness for Ohio State's defense. So that's going to be an interesting game. And Ohio State obviously has a history at West Lafayette that's been so dodgy. So that's going to be interesting. But then you look at the rest of the schedule and you go, well, Nebraska's not going to challenge them, and Maryland, because it's between Michigan State and Michigan, maybe. But I'm not that impressed with Michigan State. I think Michigan is certainly coming along. But these are the games now, next 2 or 3, again with a possible exception of Purdue, that you can treat these as, I don't want to say scrimmages, but as an opportunity to really work on things that that down the road, when you really are playing for championships, that you want to make sure that you've got down.
Last thing for Bill Rabinowitz, have you ever seen a 6'9", 400-pound offensive lineman like we're going to see this weekend with this Daniel Fa'alele?
Yeah, Tim May and I just did a podcast, the top podcast a few minutes ago, and I said, Larry Johnson was on Meyer's radio show today and said, yeah, we got to make sure that we don't let him get his hands on us. I said, yeah, if you get a 400-pound guy who pancakes you, that might be the end of you.
Oh, yeah, so exactly. You'll be buried 6 feet under, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would also think that a 6'9", 400-pound tackle would have problems with mobility, and so you can go around a guy like that. You think, although again, you got to go way around him. He's a big guy.
That's exactly right. You're taking a large turn to get around him. Hey, Bill, appreciate the time very much, and we will talk with you soon.
Always good to be on with you, Matt.